We're rolling.
Welcome to the House Dudes podcast, where we invite you to follow us on our journey towards financial freedom using the power of real estate. I'm Jack Haas.
And I'm Josh Koth. Here at House Dudes, we believe in a couple key principles. Number one, the best way to retain information is by teaching it to others. And number two, a rising tide lifts all boats. We're not competitors, we're a community. So let's get into some real estate investing.
This episode is brought to you by Yellow Letter HQ. Head over to bit.ly/yellowletterhd for fast, affordable, direct-to-seller marketing. Tired of real estate marketing campaigns that don't get results? Yellow Letter HQ is one of the most competitive direct mail campaigns that can save your budget and your sanity. They deliver a fast campaign turnaround that gets your phone ringing. Check out their services at bit.ly/yellowletterhd. So, could you talk a little bit about some properties? When we're talking about A, B, C, D, type properties, do you come across properties that are like in a B neighborhood but are a C class that you can try to pull into the B class, or how much more work and effort is a C property in a C neighborhood versus a B property in a B neighborhood?
Yeah, there's there's a lot of different philosophies on all of that stuff, and they're all right. There's an investor out there who's been investing in D neighborhoods their whole career, and they've made a very nice living in doing so, and that's their business DNA. Then there are some investors that look at C plus neighborhoods and say, no, I don't even want to be there. I want to be in that quality of a B neighborhood. I think the biggest mistake that some investors can make is that they buy an asset, and they buy the asset with the intent of raising rent above market value. Mm-hmm. Now, if your business model is to be at the front of the line, to be the most expensive asset out there in the sense of income, if it's almost like taking the mistake of over rehabbing a single family house. Mm-hmm. Well, now put that on a multiplier of 100 units. If you over rehab 100 units, thinking you're going to get higher rents, you're setting yourself up for a challenge and potentially a disaster, not only for that particular asset, but also for your investors. So what we'll do is we'll identify a C-type property in a B-type neighborhood. And Jack, to be frank with you, it's really not a huge concern on the amount of work it takes, because I make my money and my investors make money with us because I make my money on the buy side. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? If it's bought wrong in the first place, Jack, forget it. You're already behind the 8 ball. So if my cost of construction, my CapEx, is a real number, well, that goes on my analysis sheet. We use a proprietary underwriting software. I put that on my analysis sheet, and then it tells me, hey, okay, that's your CapEx, that's your market rents, there's your T12, trailing 12 years income. There's your deficiencies in unit lease up. There's your deficiencies in financial collection. Bum, 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 bum. This is what you can pay for the property and still pay your investors their preferred rate of return. See, for us, it's about paying investors as quickly as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. Everybody, especially in COVID, is concerned about cash flow. People lost their jobs. Even some of the investors that I talked to, you mentioned a doctor prior to the call. A lot of the medical professionals tell me frequently, hey, I couldn't even open my practice, or all of those procedures that went on during COVID, mm-hmm. that couldn't be performed. Well, every time a doctor performs a procedure, that's how they make income, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of that fear around cash flow. So investing with us and our business model is always focused on cash flow to make sure the deals make sense. So you make the money on the buy side, you realize the bigger profit at the time of liquidation when you sell these assets out.
So when somebody is evaluating a multifamily for the first time, are there like some gotchas, some numbers that they probably should particularly pay attention to?
Yeah, absolutely there are. I did a short video on the back end of our website at Freedom Venture. And it's a short one, 7 minutes. It's worth a look. I don't even know how it all works, to tell you the truth, Jack. It connects to YouTube somehow. But
and I can link to that video too. So.
What's that?
I'll link to that video as well.
Yeah, I'll give you a link to it. Yeah. There are three numbers that we focus on, and a newer investor should focus on these as well. And it's pretty simple. It's a cash-on-cash return, right? Does the investment make sense? There's then what we call a cap rate or a capitalization rate. Commercial real estate is traded on cap rates. And every market in the United States of America has a different acceptable benchmark for a cap rate for a specific asset class. You know, if you bought a 20-unit beautiful brick building on the Charles River, where I am up in Boston, it would probably trade right now at a 3.5, maybe a 4 cap or a 4% return. That's the way that they're structured. But that same brick 20-unit building in Greenville, right, in the Carolinas, might trade at a 7 cap. Okay, but you would pay less money for the asset and get a higher rate of return, whereas other investors will look in the depressed markets, the depressed cap markets, and they'll say, okay, that 20-unit building is, you know, I don't know, $5 million, but I'm okay getting a 4% return on $5 million and then try and create some value in it. So lower cap rates are not designed for cash flow. They're designed for appreciation over time. Higher cap rates are designed to give a better monthly cash flow. So we look at cash on cash return, capitalization rates, and then the other number, which is critical for any investor in analysis, is what's called the DCR or the DSR. Some people call it the debt coverage service ratio or the debt service ratio. And that's does this building create enough income that a bank will lend on it? All right, unless an investor or a fund like us wants to just put all of the capital down and leave it there, which doesn't, you know, that's leverage, man. That's real estate investor one-on-one, leverage somebody else's money all the time. So what we do is we put our capital down and then we leverage out with the bank 80-20, 70-30, depending on the deal. But you know, that bank wants to know that the building can pay for itself. So the kind of like the industry standard is what's called a 1.25 DCR, or debt service ratio, debt coverage ratio. And basically what that 1.25 means is this, Jack, is for every $1 that I have to make in debt service or mortgage payment on an annual basis, the bank wants to see an additional 25 cents coming in. I've seen some shifting recently. There's some institutions that are going a little the other way. They're looking for like a 1.3, depending on the asset and its occupancy, that kind of thing. So cap rates, I love to see cap rates 8% or better, because that puts me in a position where there's debt service. I can create equity as well as make monthly payments. So I like that for a cap rate number. Debt service coverage ratios always got to be better than better than a 1.25. And then cash on cash, just to give you an idea of our fund. And these are targeted, right? We're always being SEC compliant. But our targeted cash on cash returns are around 8 to 10%. And then our IRR, or our internal rate of return, we target that out anywhere between 18 to 20% for the life cycle of the capital working in our fund. So yes, simple numbers in the beginning, but to be very, we got to be direct here. It's not fifth grade math, because after that you get into how did you get all of those numbers in the first place, and that's your due diligence and your underwriting and your expertise.
Sure. So you mentioned, you're going into a bunch of these different markets. How are you selecting and finding those and vetting out those property managers in all of these markets?
No, great questions as well. So we have just like we underwrite a property, we underwrite property managers. We're blessed to have some national managers on our team as well. It's very boots on the ground, man. It's boots on the ground. It's evaluating a property manager's business model, because it's easy to say, yeah, I managed 500 units or 1,000 units, a property management company, but it's a different thing to say I manage them professionally. A lot of these assets, they try and sell them with property management in place, and yet it was the property managers that drove down the value of the asset in the first place.
Right.
So depending on what it looks like, how they meet our criteria, there's an interview, and I mean, our process for qualifying property managers is probably a manual that thick in and of itself, right? And I'd be going through those details, for the next 3 days. But the best way to describe it is this: out of every, we'll say, 100 properties that we evaluate, we also evaluate the property managers attached to those properties, right?
Right.
So out of 100 that we evaluate, maybe 10 of them get through the initial evaluation. And out of that 10, 5 might go to the next level. And out of that 5, we might only put letters of intent and start talking contracts with the property managers on 2 of them, which is why a fund and syndicated deals can be a strategy for what's called an accredited investor, because it is time intensive. We're not talking about a couple of bucks. I mean, we're talking about $100 million. So if you're making a commitment in that kind of a world, then you better have a proven track record of success as a fund to be able to execute on the business plan. Look, man, there's good and bad in every market, and it's experience that allows you to determine what is good and what isn't. And I'll go 0 degrees on that one all day long.
We've toyed around and played around with investing out of market.
Sure.
And it's hard enough to find a property manager local where you can get your interests aligned. Your interests just naturally aren't aligned with a lot of property managers. So it's always interesting.
No, I get it. Yeah. Look, here's the bottom line. It's economies of scale. All right. So I've got the economies of scale on my side of the equation, whereas most investors are very familiar with either a syndicated deal, one sponsor, 20, 30, 40, 50 people putting in maybe 25 grand, right, on the low end. Well, that's one deal. Well, that one deal doesn't absorb the economies of scale with a fund with $100 million in it. Do things go sideways? Yeah. I'd be absolutely lying to you if I told you everything was perfect 24/7. That's what we do as fund managers. We understand the challenges before we even go in, and then we hedge against all of the challenges that we know we're going to find when we get in there. Have some property managers been fired after 60 days? Yeah. Right? Have some property managers stayed with us with longevity? Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So instead of all the eggs in one basket, a fund is giving us the economies of scale when it comes to those challenges, Jack.
Sure. So when you find that perfect property manager, I'm sure that not only are they helping you with any kind of vacancy rate, but they help you keep some expenses under control. Like, are there some, now that you've done quite a few of these, I mean, your portfolio is rather large. Are there some like target expenses you just know, like we gotta check and get these under control right away? Like,
Look, every market has a price per square foot, right, in construction costs. Cost of materials are cost of materials. If we're doing them on volume, there's a chance to save capital on the cost of materials. But it's human beings at the end of the day. I always use the analogy of kind of like Warren Buffett. He buys businesses. He looks for underperforming businesses. He goes in, he cuts the fat, makes the business more valuable, keeps it, sells it. Well, we do the same thing. Like we target payroll, for example. What is everybody getting paid for? What are they really doing? And we'll either work that relationship with the property managers, or we just work it from a higher foot view, because we have industry standards that have repetitively given us the results that we're looking for. And to sum it all up real easy is 47%, 40% of expense to income ratio. Anything higher than that is an opportunity for us. some assets we can run leaner than others. It all depends on the size and the amount of, challenges that specific asset has. But, with experience, it doesn't take too long to pin down where the challenges are, right?
Mm-hmm.
That overpriced HVAC contractor, you talk to the property manager and you say, why is that HVAC contractor at that price point? Oh, it's my brother-in-law. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? So who's asking all those questions? Well, that's what we do as fund managers, right? We delve into all of those specific details. And look, man, I'd love to be able to put it all in a nice straight line, but it's hard to talk about a combined 50 plus years of experience with us as fund managers on this stuff. Like we look at it at expense income ratio, and without even talking to my partner, Walter, we already know where the challenges are and whether we can fix them or not. And some you can't fix, so we don't buy them.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that.
Right. No, so it sounds like you really rely pretty heavily on your network, and I think that's a pretty solid point to pull out. I mean, in your network is everything, and if you seem to be in a situation where if you're moving into a market, one of your first tasks is building out your network in that market.
Sure.
Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There was a saying, corny, not corny, put it any way you want. I don't care. Your net worth is a correlation of your network, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, this is so hard to do sometimes, man. I'll go direct with you again. I always talk about the guy from the TV show as somebody else. Otherwise, it feels like an ego trip, right? But what separates us and our fund is that guy from the TV show. In the sense of he is able to open up doors and get responses that a lot of other people can't, right?
Right.
There's an old adage in business, right? If your phone goes off and you see on the caller ID and you send that person to voicemail, you don't ever want to be that person going to voicemail. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to go into a market that we identify as having upside potential for us to put our investor capital to work, it doesn't take me very long to make 5-10 phone calls and have the top 2, 3, 4 players in any specific service that we need at the end of the Rolodex, showing my age, on the phone to be able to get some numbers rolling and get some feedback. I don't care whether it's a broker, I don't care whether it's capital, it's property managers. Building a team in that market is less of a challenge for us. So it is network driven, brother. It really is. It's, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know what you know, you're never going to get the right people to be in the who you know department,
Right.
That makes sense. That makes sense to me.
So with that, I know I interrogated you for quite a while here.
That's all right, man.
Before we end here, was there anything that you wish I would have asked?
No, man. I'm one of those guys who does everything he can to be in the moment, and whatever we discussed is what we were supposed to discuss. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not a guy of organized religion, but I'm definitely a man of faith. Mm-hmm. And if we had a message today that helped just one person who listened to the show, then that's what we were supposed to do today. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's not an ulterior motive. If somebody reaches out and we put capital to work and give them a great rate of return, that's awesome. If somebody doesn't reach out, that's okay too. We're going to be fine. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Is there anything I can do for you, Jack?
I just appreciate your background and growing my network.
There you go, brother. There you go. There it is. And if you're new to the business, don't give up. Just stay the course.
Yeah,
I was broke as a joke one day, and 12 years later, I'm in such a different world, and I'm blessed.
Right. So, if people were interested in more information or getting in touch with you, how would they reach out?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways. You can just search us out on Facebook. Go figure. You can find me at Dave Seymour Live. That's my personal page. Our company is Freedom Venture Investments. You can find us at freedomventure.com is a website. Sure. It's probably your most direct. And if you do go to freedomventure.com, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there's a book that I just finished with my property manager, of all people, a gentleman by the name of John Dessauer. John and I just finished an ebook. It's a free download. You're more than welcome to grab that. Unlocking the code to multifamily investing. And there's great resources there. Reach out, spend a little time with us, or don't. But it's all about network, man. But you can grab a hold of us at either one of those places. freedomventure.com. You can find me, Dave Seymour. Just Google me, Dave Seymour, Seymour. Find me on LinkedIn, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not my
LinkedIn
realm.
is one of those things I think people kind of forget about, but frankly, that's probably my biggest network.
Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk, if you know who Gary V is.
Yep,
Gary V, he was part of a mastermind group that I was with or affiliated with years ago. And anyway, Gary V said in 2013, I think it was, just did a post today. He was talking up LinkedIn back then, and now whatever amount of years it is later, 7 years later. Yeah, 7? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, 13. I don't know, whatever. Can't do the math. That's a formula. The next one he was talking about was this TikTok thing. But my network's for accredited investors, so I don't know if they're hanging out on TikTok yet.
Some of the as much as I want to keep up with Gary V, he jumps on these platforms really fast. TikTok. Yeah. I maybe it's just my age. I don't quite get it.
Yeah, I got a little gray on the side. You got a little gray in your beard, brother. I get it. I'm with you. It's all good.
My daughter's been trying to get me on Snapchat. I have it installed, but I don't quite get that either. But
I haven't even got Pinterest figured out, so don't worry about it. Us old guys will hang out together. It's all good.
There you go. So thank you so much for joining me today, Dave. And I'll make sure to include all those links in the show notes. And I hope we can do it again sometime. Yeah,
you bet, brother. I'll send you a little, all the links that I have. I'll send it to you, and then you can throw it on there if you'd like. Okay?
Yeah, sounds great. I appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
brother.
you, sir.
Be well. Take care, man.
You too.
Bye.
This episode was brought to you by Stessa, Smart Money Management for Real Estate Investors. Let's face it, accountants can get very expensive, and we are investors, not bookkeepers. So that's where Stessa steps in. It has automated income and expense tracking and allows you to generate a variety of reports, including income statement, net cash flow, balance sheet, capital expenses, and most importantly, export tax-ready financials, which makes tax time a breeze. Head over to stessa.com, stessa.com for more details. We've put a lot of effort into providing useful content, and if you've found value in the show and have any interest in supporting us with a small donation, head over to patreon.com/housedudes.
And if you have any thoughts or questions, shoot us an email at info@housedudes.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter @housedudes. And if you like what you're hearing, head over to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really helps other investors out there find the show.
And remember, massive positive impact requires
massive positive action. We'll see you next time. This episode was brought to you by housedudes.com. Do you have time to actively manage flipping and rentals yourself? If so, go for it. If you live in a market that won't cash flow or don't have the time to do all the work, are you just out of luck? If there was a way to participate more passively, would that appeal to you? I'm sure you have questions about how the process works and what to do next. If that's the case, fill out the form on housedudes.com/investors, and we'll reach out to see if you are a good fit for our business. This is first come, first serve, and we will have to stop taking applications when our goals are met. See you at housedudes.com/investors.
I don't like to tell a man what to do with his money, but if you ain't investing in property, then you're dumber than a dummy.
I'm not dumb. I'm smart.
Well, buy property. That's my advice.